I want to preface this video with a message. The following video may include mature situations, stories of the paranormal, the occult, or what some may consider disturbing or offensive. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, justangelicaj. I'm Angelica. So before we get into today's story time, I just want to say, this channel is a judgment-free zone. I respect everyone's opinions and beliefs, regardless of background, religion, or belief system. I want us to get into these story times with an open mind. I also want to remind everyone that a couple of videos ago, I stated that if you had a fascinating or extraordinary story to share, whether it be paranormal, everyday life, or just relationships, to reach out via email. Well, over the last several weeks, I have had several people reach out to me, and today is the first episode of a series that I will be doing where I get to share your stories and tell them. So having said that, I will also want to remind you that these are real people with real stories and true events. Now, whether you believe it or not, that is up to you. Here we go. So for today's story, I have changed names and some of the details, but like I said earlier, these are real people with real stories and true events. So M was on vacation with her husband, and they invited M's best friend and her husband. So during this vacation, the men went on a boating excursion. M and her best friend decided to go explore a little around where they were at, and they went into the market to do some shopping and exploring. While the two women were walking the market, M's friend comes across a fortune teller with a tent set up. The friend gets excited to get her fortune told, but M is a bit apprehensive. She doesn't believe or like to participate in anything that practices the occult. They both enter the tent. In the tent, there were two stations or two tables set up with a wall or a partition dividing them. There's only one fortune teller, so M's friend goes right to the fortune teller. M was uncomfortable, so she walks back outside to wait. Just then, an elderly woman approaches her and asks M to come sit down or come inside the tent for a reading. M is ready to say no thank you, but suddenly as she looks at her in the face, she realizes this elderly woman kind of resembles M's mother. In this moment, M had a very cerebral connection to this elderly woman. So before you know it, M walks in the tent and sits down at her table. When she sits down, she places her palm up, because this is a palm reading, and the elderly woman gently grabs her hand and starts to study her palm. Just then, the elderly woman tells her, "I see your husband is on an airplane, and he sits on top of a pine box." M suddenly feels strange. There's like this inner turmoil with M. Not only is it nervousness just because this is just something unknown to her, but also she's having this kind of like inner turmoil with her religious belief. She feels that this is something that God would not approve of. So in that moment, she feels like this is just not where she wants to be. So she gently pulls her hand back, she pays the elderly woman, and she leaves. And she decides to wait outside for her best friend. Well, when her best friend comes out, M shares what the reading was. And her best friend also was just like, that is strange. That's a bit shocking that she would mention your husband. So they decide, let's just continue shopping and enjoy the day. Shortly thereafter, M decides she's not going to tell her husband of this encounter, and she just sort of just pushes it to the back of her mind, and she enjoys the rest of her vacation. So 2 years have passed. M and her husband are on vacation once again. They are once again abroad, and on this day, the weather is so nice, they decide to go for a boat ride and a swim. Now, while they were on the swim, M's husband has a medical emergency. It takes 2 members of the boat crew to jump into the water and assist him back on the boat. M climbs on the boat, she grabs her husband, she's holding his head, and she's just kind of talking him through this medical emergency. She's trying to keep him aware, alert, and they're racing back to shore for help. But before they can reach the shore, M's husband passes away right in her arms. M is absolutely devastated. The days following this life-altering event were a whirlwind of emotions and mind-numbing at the same time. M now had to make arrangements for her husband's deceased body to be flown back to the United States. At the airport, M had to sign papers and just to make sure that his remains would be handled properly. This was the first stop of many to get her husband back to the States. While she was sitting on the plane, M looks out the window. She notices a single pine coffin being loaded onto the plane cargo. When she sees this, she instantly remembers the elderly woman's reading like a seismic jolt. She realized that her beloved husband was being transported in a pine box on a plane. Like I said, whether you believe this is true or not, this is a real person with a real story and true events that they experienced. So after receiving M's email message, I reached out to her, obviously to discuss some of the details and privacy things, but I know you're wondering, how did her husband pass? But for privacy reasons and at the request of M, I will not disclose how he passed, just out of respect for her privacy. M also had a final message in our correspondence, and she made a couple of things known. I did ask her if anyone else knew of the reading that she got while she was on vacation with her best friend and, the husbands. And she said the only person at the time that knew that was her best friend. And later, years later, after her husband's passing, she did divulge this information to immediate family, but she never told his family. She also said this. She did feel regret. She said she felt what would be daring and a fun thing to do came from a dark, unholy, spiritual side. She felt that it was unwise for her to attempt to see into the future. And with that, that is the story time. And like I said in the beginning, some of you just don't believe in this type of stuff. Some of you, whether it be religious reasons or just personal belief systems, don't understand or just don't believe in things like this. But I also would like to add that I believe, and again, this is just me, little old me, I just feel like whether you believe it or not, this is just my personal opinion, we live in a great big world, in a great big universe. And I just don't think we can say with complete certainty that we know everything there is about Earth or beyond. So this is why in the beginning I said, let's have an open mind, and at the very least, let's just be respectful. So, like I said in my correspondence to M, if you are watching, if you are listening, I send you my deepest condolences for your loss. And I absolutely hope that you find comfort, peace, and healing. So that's the story time. For those of you that want to share your story, you can email me. I will put the information in the description below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.